your interaction with her? Because it seems before, like you had said that you weren't so big on the idea.
Yeah, well, I worry about bills where we're making decisions. What's used for medical therapy or for medicinal purposes, and what's not. We're policymakers. I don't have a very, I don't know much about medicines and what qualifies to be medicine versus not. So it's not an area that I'm comfortable with. The only reason why I pause is because my wife's grandma Alice is a really nice lady, and she's just doesn't tell me how to vote in the legislature very often. So it actually has caught my attention.
Did she actually use medical marijuana?
I don't know. I didn't want. I don't know if I didn't ask her so I could have culpable deniability or what, but I didn't actually ask her that question. But she didn't seem to be bothered by it at all.
Does she have some health issues though?
Well, she's advanced in age, 92 years old. I think the body's probably.
Because of 60s.
Yeah, she. I don't know. She's. I think she's very healthy for 92, but she sees some merit in the idea.
Is it fair to say she changed your mind somewhat on this?
She has me thinking. I don't know that my mind's changed, but I'm definitely weighing it more than I was before we had our Sunday dinner.
Were there brownies?
No, there were not. Or gummy bears. No.
You said that we'd get a good hearing over here. The Senate is now saying they won't hear Utah Cares. There won't be a hearing on that.
Oh.
What's your response to that?
I don't have one.
Are you disappointed?
We're doing our best over here to send over good policy, good piece of legislation we can get consensus on, and it's up to the Senate to do with that what they will.
So is process being denied in the Senate?
You tell me.
I'm asking you because that's what we heard over here.
I'm saying that I understand they're not going to hold a hearing on it. You see that as the process being denied?
I don't know.
Well, you have posed that to us when that expression was given, so I'm assuming that question was asked. I think Representative Gibson was just wondering if they had said
You
that.
asked them the same thing. I didn't know.
I wasn't there, so.
They've said that they'll take it to the floor likely, that they're not gonna do a committee, but they'll take it directly to the floor.
Okay.
If you don't like to, do you favor HB 313 as a previous spoken caucus about the plurality issue? Do you favor that, or do you think that there should be another solution?
Bob, I'm open to a runoff. I'm open to how we winnow down to two candidates, but right now we only have one proposal that's even available for us to consider, and I do believe that having multiple candidates qualify on the ballot dilutes the votes of those that are running in a way that we might be disappointed by the outcome.
You brought it up in caucus, but you didn't take a vote to see if there's caucus support for moving forward. Do you plan on doing that? Do you plan on getting a direction of the caucus on that? Or?
I think it's one of those bills. Today's the last day to hear House bills, so we've added some more context to the bill that's circled on the board right now, and we'll just see where it goes.
So you were trying to persuade them to take a good look at HB 313, even though it may not be.
Well, I was clarifying. I had heard that there had been no discussion within the compromise to address plurality, and I had been in attendance at that press conference and remembered that had been brought up, and so we went back to the news conference and listened and saw that it had been mentioned specifically, and I thought that was worth sharing with our colleagues.
What context are you talking about? You said there's context. How is it going to be changed?
How's what going to be changed?
The HB 313.
No, you misheard me. I just said that I read the transcript from the press conference from a year ago that clarified that plurality was contemplated as an issue that all sides were concerned with, and that there was a desire to address that. It says in the press conference, future legislative session, but it would be best to be the one before you're in the event of an election like next year.
So what message are you trying to send to caucus members by bringing all that up as this bill comes on the board?
Just to be fully informed, know what the consequence of passing legislation versus not what that will mean to House members as we next session enter into a campaign season.
But I also think there have been members of our caucus who weren't around last year. And to say that plurality was not discussed before, it's not true. So we make reference to the press conference just to let everyone know it has been addressed and talked about.
Even those that were here weren't present at the press conference, and it was, and I've mentioned it. I do a radio show with Senator DeBacchus and Natalie Gochner, and throughout the year, as we've touched on this issue, I've mentioned the plurality issue without protest or without disagreement, that it's an issue that has been a concern.
I think it can be a big issue, and I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, I ran for the city council. It was a brand new city, and in the state law, there was no mechanism for a runoff or a primary. So we had 67 candidates that ran for 5 city council positions, and all 67 were on the ballot. And when you went to meet the candidates, you had 67 candidates. And we took the top 5 vote getters of the 67. They each got like 2.5 votes, and they won. And I was one of the 5, so it worked out okay for me, but I do not think that is a good mechanism.
If the majority leader could address the Senate's decision not to hold a hearing on Utah Cares.
I had not heard that.
They apparently talked about that in Senate availability today. I understand it may go directly to the floor, but there won't be a hearing. You're tired of that? What do you think of that?
Well, we're getting close to the end of the session, and so we're making a real effort to have all bills, have a hearing in both the House and the Senate if possible. But I understand as we're getting down to the wire, that's not going to be possible for all bills.
But isn't that important enough that it should have a hearing in the Senate?
Well, I guess that would be for them to decide.
Any plans for any compromise legislation or anything? I mean, Senator Shizawa says he certainly holds out hope for that, but from your perspective, is there a way to merge these 2 bills?
I think we've always said that we're looking for common ground. We have from the very beginning. And hopefully we can find some common ground with our colleagues in the Senate and with the governor.
You talked today about the amount of money available for the bill of bills. I guess it's a total of 20 million split between House and Senate, split between ongoing and one time. How does some kind of Medicaid expansion fit into that, whether it's Utah Cares or something different at this point?
So if we decide to do some type of Medicaid enhancement or extension or expansion, we will have to come up with a revenue stream to fund that. There are ways, there are mechanisms.
And what would that be? I mean, the governor originally talked about tax increases, but you're spending all the money.
Well, they're
Properly allocating the money. Spending is so harsh.
we're not spending all the money. That's what our colleagues in the Senate are doing. So there are ways, if it's an important policy decision, and I think if we come to agreement, we'll find the funding.
But where would it come from?
There are a variety of methods and ways. I prefer to see what common ground can be reached.
If you pass one of these bills, some of the money shakes out of other social services programs, and you end up with some additional money.
I think that's true. I think there is, although, well, within both Healthy Utah and Utah Cares, there are anticipated savings in rehabilitation and correctional costs. So those don't. No.
You talk about the House Rules change today that was approved by the House Rules Committee. Why was that necessary?
I think there's needed some clarification in a couple of areas in our rules. Right now, the threshold to bring a failed bill to the House floor is less than the threshold to bring a tabled bill to the House floor. That doesn't make sense. If a bill failed, it should be a higher threshold to bring to the House floor than a bill that was tabled in committee. So we just put it on parity with a table bill. It has the same requirement to get to the House floor as a table bill would have been.
And it was prompted by the Democrats' move.
They jogged my memory, yes.
But I also think another part of that rule that may get overlooked is the bill's circled. anyone shouldn't be able to encircle the bill. Only the bill sponsor should be able to encircle that bill. That's another part of the change.
So that's the second piece of the rule is, last year I sponsored a House resolution addressing how you can get a bill that's failed to the floor. I think we had an example this last week of how we just needed to clarify that. You can still do it. The threshold's just clearer.
So you guys say you're looking for common ground, the Senate says they're looking for common ground. Is there enough time left in the session to find common ground?
There is enough time, although we are, the time frame is dwindling, but there is still time.
Is it possible that this gets done after the session?
I
It
think,
just doesn't happen.
I think all things are possible. Personally, I hope we accomplish something this session.
If you do come up with some sort of hybrid model or combo plan or, you know, tomorrow's the last day for hearings, right?
Yes.
So you would have to do that today, presumably. Well, you have to do it for the next couple hours to get an agenda, or bring it straight to the floor of that hearing.
I think that's correct. I mean, there are always mechanisms. You could have an additional committee hearing if you wanted, but as we get down to the last of the session, there will be bills that have only had a hearing in one house, although, as you know, for the first time in at least the time period that myself and the speaker have been here, we've held committee hearings longer and further into the session so that we can make sure that more bills have been vetted between both the House and the Senate committees.
But you don't feel like you're on the brink of an agreement that might sort of give hope that there's going to be.
Well,
something.
we're still open. We're still open, so
Are you meeting?
occasionally.
I mean,
But you're-
let's be honest, Robert, this is a topic that we've only talked about like once or twice this session on either side of the issue, so it's not gonna have to have a whole lot of
Yeah,
education to come up with something if that happens.
right. I just was wondering if it was like the minds are together, try to hammer something out, or if it's just, yeah, if something happens, it happens.
We're certainly trying to be proactive.
But nothing's gonna happen in the next few hours, you don't think?
A few hours or like a few days.
So, I don't know what the future holds, but we'll find out.
Is there a House sponsor for medical cannabis that you're aware of?
I think they're going through their clinical trials right now.
It ain't me.
Your priorities, I mean, you're coming down to it, this is the last 30 days really, and, you know, what would you like to see taken care of in the next few days?
I'd like to pass a budget. I think that's always
That's kind of what you
one
have
of
to
those
do, your big
boxes you have
job,
to check.
right?
Yeah, sure. We have that issue. We still have the anti-discrimination religious liberty bill, or a couple of them that will be heading our way. We have one that is from the House that's currently circled. Those are going to have a lot of discussion, and there is work to do in the House on that front. That's an important area that we'll be working on. We've got the transportation in our caucus today. We spoke at length about our funding formula for roads and the motor fuel tax, and if we can do something to reform that formula so that it's not losing money every year the way it does the unit tax. It's a pretty important piece of policy. And but with important policy, all the transformative stuff that's easy to do, someone else got to do it. All the stuff left is the hard stuff. So that's what we have to do. And but transportation funding is an issue. Our education budget, we've worked very hard to find consensus. We'd like to see everyone come together at the very end and herald some truly some new money and new resources to public education. So those are some of the areas. Prison relocation, that's on the cusp of being considered and hopefully passed in terms of that process moving forward. So there's some big items.
On
last
the
question. Religious liberty, anti-discrimination, sorry, I was thinking big issue, it was hard to identify which one. Is that gonna have any trouble over here? I know it has a hearing this afternoon, but is the caucus
I don't
on board?
expect it to. The only issue is that people need to be familiar with it. The press conference was last week, and there's a lot of people that want to really understand the bill and have their questions answered. And so we are working hard to see that that happens.
So having a competing piece of legislation or potentially competing piece of legislation on the board circle isn't going to interfere with that.
I mean, we would hope that it doesn't compete. We hope that it may touch on the same area of policy, but not seen as competition to what's being worked on.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.